Okay, so I want to go on, but there's one point that I forgot to mention yesterday. This is a fundamental concept that a lot of people struggle with. You see, Aaron has two sons who die. Now, they needed to be punished, right? They need to be punished. The question is, but why does Aaron deserve the punishment? So, in life, what happens is the way Hashem works is that sometimes you need, in order for something to happen, you need more than one factor. So, for example, Aaron needed to be punished for the golden calf. But his sons don't deserve to die because the father did the golden calf. The sons deserve to die because they brought this ketoris that they should have brought. But he doesn't deserve the suffering of having his sons die. Without both of those factors, it wouldn't have happened. So that Kosher will do something else. Once both factors are in place, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu could do that. That's a rule in life. If a man, that's one of the reasons they say before Rosh Hashanah. What's one of the things that a person should do in order we all want to have a good year and every person wants to live long, be healthy? One of the things a person should do is make himself the type of person who other people need. That means you're communal, you help the community, you do chesed, you help people out. Because if Reuven has to die, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, and Yisachar are all going to suffer. Some are his children, and some are his brothers, and some are his friends, and some are the guys who he always supports for Shabbos food. So you need all the factors to be there. In order for one person to be punished, it has to affect everybody else. That's HaKadosh Baruch Hu's incalculable way of running the world. That for what's that?
Recalculated, you want to say?
No, we can't fathom how much is going. Remember, I told you the Chazon Ish said planes don't crash, people crash. You need all the people on the plane who need to crash at that point. Then it goes, who crashes the plane. It's not the plane that crashes, it's the people that crash. And if one person is on that plane, the whole plane won't crash. So what about the other people? So, this person will get off the plane and then they'll catch a connecting flight. No, look, it's ridiculous, the manipulation. That's something that's unfathomable to us. But that's what happens over here, that Aaron needs to be punished at some level. And that's why the next pasuk says, in Pasuk Perek Yud, Pasuk Yud Beis, Perek Yud, Pasuk Yud Beis, on 594, Vayidaber Moshe el Aaron vel Elazar vel Isamar banav hanosarim, his remaining sons. Sixth line on 594. Moshe speaks to Aaron and Elazar and Isamar banav hanosarim, the remaining sons. And the commentaries say, they were also supposed to die. Remaining meaning they survived. They were the survivors. That means that theoretically they weren't supposed to survive, but Moshe Rabbeinu davened that they should be let off the hook, so at least a little bit is let off the hook from Aaron. They're the nosarim, they're the surviving sons. So why? Because the what do you call it? Because originally the decree on Aaron was that all the sons should die. Why didn't these two die? So now let's go back to that principle that I just told you. Because they didn't do something wrong like Nadav and Avihu did. There's actually I saw one of them first say, you know why Aaron got punished? Oh boy, I'm going to open up a Pandora's box here. Be careful with this one. Who was Aaron married to? He was married to a woman named Elisheva, who was the sister of Nachshon ben Aminadab. So his first son was named Nadav, which means Aaron named his first son after his father-in-law, and his second son is named Avihu. Avihu means, he is my father. So he named the first son after his father-in-law, he named the second son after his father, and for that he's punished. He should have named the first son after his father. Because your obligation in honoring parents, you have a bigger obligation to your father than you did to your father-in-law. Now, having said that, I got to be really careful here. One of the areas of life which takes something which should be a joyous occasion and turns it into misery is people getting all bent out of shape over naming children. And sometimes a couple has children, and then next thing you know, there's a bubby who got involved, and a great aunt who got involved, and a grandpa who got involved, and then there's a family feud over naming, and people won't talk to each other for years over the names. And if you have your head screwed on straight, you realize that when it comes to naming kids, so some people want to be creative. I don't want to name them after, my grandfather's name was Yitzhak Shlomo. I don't want that name. We need something like, want to call him like a name of a tree and an animal and a molecule all together, make up a name. We're not. But if you name after a family member and it's your parents are going to be happy, you fulfill the Torah command of making your parents happy of kibbud av va'em, and that's a tremendous merit for the child. And not only that, the Sfarim, the holy books say that when there's fighting over a child's name, the child's life is in danger. How do you like that? People, and then they get upset. I mean, honestly, Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky said that naming a child is not a merit for the deceased. People think, I want it to be a merit for my husband Harold, whose Hebrew name was Herschel. So it should be a merit when naming a child. Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky said it doesn't do anything for the deceased. To name a child doesn't do anything for him. Sometimes it's good for the child to be named after a tzaddik. So it could be good for the child that he's got the merit of the tzaddik. It doesn't work upwards, it comes downwards. People get way out. This is one of those things in life that people go way out of proportion here. Way out of proportion. So you try to keep everybody happy, and it's just advisable, by the way, you just don't even discuss it with anybody. You don't discuss the name with anybody when a child is born. You hear the suggestions, but don't start talking. You're just going to, what do you call it? And be very non-committal. When your aunt says to you, I'd like you to name him after my brother Beryl Clonimus, just be very, very non-committal. Like, I hear. That sort of thing. But people lose all sense. So there are commentators that say that Aaron should have honored his father by naming the first one Avihu and the second one Nadav. And instead he named the first one Nadav, so there's actually a source that says that. An interesting source. Okay. Now, go on. We're skipping on ahead now. In Moshe Rabbeinu, at a certain point, there's a bit of confusion about what happened to why they didn't eat the korban, and Aaron responds back, and Moshe Rabbeinu accepts the response. On 596, it says like this, and this is a life lesson for us. Vayishma Moshe, sorry, 4 lines from the bottom. Vayishma Moshe vayitav be'enav. Moshe hears, and it found favor in his eyes. Take a look at Rashi. Moshe hears, and Aaron's explanation, and in Pasuk, where is it? Rashi says, it's the left column, 6th line from the top. If you find it, please show the person next to you. You know what? Maybe we could turn on the air. I think it's time. Ellen, I think we need the air. There's absolutely no air movement in here. We'll leave the doors open so we don't. Thank you very much. So Rashi says, Vayomer vayitav be'enav. It was good in his eyes. It found favor in Moshe's eyes. Says Rashi, Hoda, he admitted. Moshe Rabbeinu admitted, Velo bosh, he wasn't embarrassed, Lomar, to say, Lo shamati. Moshe was not embarrassed to say, I didn't know, I didn't hear, I was wrong. So he admitted. And he wasn't embarrassed to say, I never learned it. I never heard. You're right, this halacha is right. I thought the korban should have been eaten, and you're right, it should not have been eaten. So the Mefarshim over here say, let's say you have an argument with somebody and you're wrong. At the point that you're wrong, what should you do? Admit you're wrong. Admit you're wrong. What did Moshe, what was he? He wasn't embarrassed to admit he's wrong. Of course he's going to admit he's wrong. He wasn't embarrassed to admit he didn't know. It's also something, I don't know. Somebody asks you a question, I don't know. You don't know everything. We're not expected to know everything. And you're going to get to a point where you don't know everything. When you learn Torah, you don't know everything. So Moshe Rabbeinu gets to a point where he actually says, first of all, I admit, and you should admit, it's immaturity to fight beyond the point. Once you know you're wrong, this could be when you're learning with a chavrusa. Sometimes you're arguing even though you know your chavrusa is right. Just give in. Wait, you're going to be right every time? And certainly when it comes to interpersonal relations, it could be a roommate, it could be a parent, it could be a spouse, it could be anything. You're wrong. So admit that you're wrong. What's the problem? You got to be right all the time. Who says you're always right? Who says that you're right? You expect, this is my opinion. Who says your opinion is right? I know it's your opinion. You said it. It wasn't my opinion. Whose opinion would it be? Just because you have an opinion doesn't mean your opinion is right. Other people have opinions too. The other ways of looking at things. And so even Moshe Rabbeinu isn't embarrassed to admit. Okay, now we get to the central point here. You'll notice that Judaism revolves a tremendous amount around food. And there's always food involved. And not only there's food involved, there are a lot of halachas involving food. Food preparation, eating food, what we could eat, what we can't eat, what we should eat, what we shouldn't eat. Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe v'Aaron lemor aleim. Dabru al bnei Yisrael lemor. Zos hachaya asher tochlu. These are the animals that you shall eat. Mikol ha-behema asher al ha'oretz. These are the animals that you should eat. Now, when what do you call it? All the animals that Moshe Rabbeinu has over here. Kol ma'afreses parsa v'shosas shesa prosos. One that has, how does he translate it? A split hoof, which is completely split, as opposed to a split which then connects at the feet. It's got to be completely split all the way. Ma'alas geira ba'behema. Ma'alas geira means it chews its cud. Osa tochelu. Chewing the cud means that an animal, the kosher animals, have 4 stomachs. And apparently they swallow the food and bring it up. And then they swallow it and they bring it up, and they swallow it, bring it up, swallow it, bring it up. Somehow the digestive juices make it easier to whatever the animals are eating, whatever a cow is eating. They swallow it, bring it up, swallow it, bring it up, swallow it, bring it up. And then you have this idea of split hoofs. So the first question over here is, and animals have to be checked. Now, when it comes to kashrus, there's extremely important concept kashrus, because food. You'll notice that the food that we eat, what kind of animals are they? What do the animals tend to be? The category. What's that?
Non-predators.
Non-predators. They're non-predators. Why is it? Because you are what you eat. Our cells and our body is made up of what we consume. So if you consume bread, that's certainly not threatening. But you consume very docile animals. Sheep, cows, chickens. There are no vultures and no birds of prey and no animals of prey. So, and even wild animals that you're allowed to eat venison, deer, that sort of thing. But they're also non-attack. They're not what was the word you used? Predator. They're not predators. They're non-predators. You are what you eat. So when it comes to the various animals, so the Torah says, okay, they got to have split hooves, and they got to chew their cud and have split hooves. Now let's read one more pasuk. Ach es zeh lo sochelu. The following you should not eat. Mimale agera u'mafrise aparsa, from those who, who chew their cud and have split hooves. Es hagomol, you don't eat a camel. Kimale gerahu, because he chews his cud. Uparsa inena mafris, he does not have a full split hoof. Tamehu lochem. That's one. One more pasuk. Ve'es hashafan. A shafan is a type of rabbit or a hare. Kimala gerahu uparsa lo yafris tamehu lochem. Ve'es neves. Kimala gerahu uparsa lo yafrisa tameahi lochem. So there are 3 animals that are listed. There's a camel and 2 types of what's the rabbit family called? Hare is a hare a type of rabbit, or rabbit is a type of hare? Don't any of you know? Me either. Good. So we're in good company over here. There's a type of camel. There are 2 types of rabbit-type creatures because they chew their cud, but they don't have split hooves. Then he calls one more animal. Vesa chazir ki mafris parsahu. He has split hooves. Vishosa shesa parsahu gera lerga, but doesn't chew his cud. So there are 4 animals. All other animals have neither. There are kosher animals that have both. There are 4 interim animals, 3 that chew their cud and 1 that has split hooves. And all other animals have neither. So the Gemara says, was Moshe Rabbeinu, this is one of your proofs of Torah. The Gemara says, was Moshe Rabbeinu a zoologist? How do he know this? He knows every single species. Where did Moshe Rabbeinu learn every single species of animal? He went to zoo school? And where did Moshe Rabbeinu learn everything? Gemara asked that. Was Moshe Rabbeinu a zoologist? So you see that obviously Moshe Rabbeinu has a communication from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and they've never found any subspecies of they've never found any other species. There was one animal that they found, some sort of animal that they found in the 40s or 50s or whatever. It turned out that it had split hooves, which doesn't chew its cud. Then they turned out it's in from the pig family. And those are the only animals. They've never found any other animals other than the ones the Torah says. Who did that? Who came up with that? Who was all over the world? Was Moshe Rabbeinu in Antarctica? Was Moshe Rabbeinu in the what do you call it? In the rainforest? What's it called? The famous rainforest in South America, the Amazon. He was in the Amazon. You know how many species they constantly find in the Amazon? Bugs and species and dust, and then they go in the water, in the river, and they never found anything in all those years. That's one of the proofs of Torah. What do you say?
I have a question. Fish are very predatory, so should we avoid eating fish?
No. Fish are if they chew their cuds, if they have what do you call fins and scales.
No, but they're very predatory. So.
They're not terribly predatory. The ones that we eat are not terribly. They swallow other fish sometimes, but they're not terribly predatory. They're not like sharks. I had a guy here once who told me that when he really wanted to treat himself, well, you want to close that? Maybe close that window over there so we block out that. Where's that music coming from? I know it's outside. Thank you. Well, it's like somebody said. It's like my wife says, "Is it raining out?" Well, it's not raining in. You know, if it's raining out. You know, is it raining outside? No, it's raining. It's raining. Of course, it's raining out. If it was raining, it's raining outside. It's not raining inside.
There's a funeral.
A funeral? That's not funeral. That's music.
They set up. Yeah, there's a funeral. They set up speakers and everything. There's a funeral at 2:30 outside the yeshiva.
For who?
Sorry.
It's going to be outside which yeshiva?
This yeshiva at 2 o'clock.
At Ohr Somayach?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
Huh. Okay.
But it's not. So
But that wasn't our music. I mean, there was a funeral. No, that's if some terrorist
they're
guy.
putting up big speakers outside.
Okay. Whatever the case is. So the idea is like this. First of all, look at that pasuk Gimel and Dalet for a second, gentlemen. You should have a problem. You should have a problem with these four species that have one of the symbols. You should have a problem. What's the problem? But do me a favor, gentlemen, put away all technology for during this year. Put all the technology away. It's not Kavanah Torah. What is your problem? Look at the pasuk carefully. When it describes the camel and the two rabbits and it describes the chazir, do you see a problem there? You should wonder about something. Torah says it's not kosher because why? What does the Torah say? It has to have two, but look at how the Torah says it. By all four of them, the Torah says it's not kosher because it has one and not the other. And which one does it list first? It lists the kosher part, not the non-kosher part. If I was telling you that a camel's a problem, I wouldn't say that a camel's a problem because he chooses cud and he doesn't have split hooves. I wouldn't say it in that order. I would say to you, a camel's a problem because he doesn't have split hooves even though he chooses cud. Do you hear? I would tell you a rabbit is a problem because even though he chooses cud, I would tell you a rabbit, he doesn't have split hooves, so even though he chooses cud. What does the Torah say? He's a problem because he chooses cud but doesn't have split hooves. The chazir is a problem because he has split hooves but doesn't chew his cud. I would say the chazir is a problem because he doesn't chew his cud, even though he has split hooves. Here's the problem. Here's the question. And the Torah puts it in the opposite order. So I heard from, what's that?
You tried to judge it favorably or something?
Oh, excellent. Very good, Ellen. That means sometimes the worst thing is having a little bit of kosher. It's a little kosher that when it's if it's completely treif, I'm not getting involved. It's not. I'm not going to go near it. Oh, you know what the problem with the camel is? Because it's got one sign that's kosher. That's already a problem right there. I told you to start this guy Goldstein goes to a McDonald's and he's sitting there eating in a McDonald's. Also, the rabbi to shul comes over. Rabbi Shul's driving past. And he looks over and says, there's Goldstein sitting at a McDonald's having a cheeseburger. So the rabbi comes over, he's standing in the window and he's looking at him, and Goldstein's chowing down. He looks up to the rabbi and he kind of waves and he continues eating. The rabbi's turning blue, red, and yellow. The rabbi's furious. Finally, Goldstein comes out. The rabbi says to Goldstein, what's going on over here? It's one thing that you're eating there. You saw me standing there? So he goes and says, yeah, Rabbi, I saw you stand there. I figured, look, it's under rabbinic supervision. So once it's under rabbinic supervision, I could eat it. So, that's the problem. Once you start rationalizing the problem. So I saw the Mefarshim say, why are these the signs? By the way, I had a guy told me that his ideal meal, I had a guy once about Tshuva, a guy never Saman, now he's Baruch Hashem, he's married, has a family. He was from the Midwest, and he said his ideal meal, his biggest struggle when he became frum, was seafood. He loved seafood, and his ideal meal was a shark steak with a side order of like lobster and shrimp or something like that, whatever it is. Treif as treif can be. That was his big struggle. So and he told me he couldn't wait to when he was a kid. He couldn't wait to go to Los Angeles to the West Coast because they got the best seafood there. He said that was his biggest struggle becoming frum. Gefilte fish somehow just doesn't do it. It doesn't match up. So the I saw the Mefarshim say, number one, exactly what Alan says, that sometimes it's a little bit, what's worse, conservative or reform? What's more dangerous, conservative or reform? Conservative is more dangerous. Because conservatives only, okay, so there's no mechitza, okay, it's a bit of a microphone, okay. But the rabbi's a male, and the rabbi's spouse is Jewish, and they don't have the services in the church. I mean, reform. Nobody who's taking that seriously. Nobody, it's so absurd. Nobody even conservatives already. That's always a problem. Sometimes in life, the closer, the more subtle something is, and therefore the Torah says here, you know what your problem is? The problem is each one has a kosher sign. That's first of all. Second of all, what's the comment? Why is it these are the signs? I said it's interesting. I've always wondered about this: chewing the cud and split hooves. What's the common denominator? What is the message we're supposed to take out of this type of food? In England they have something called black pudding. You know what black pudding is? You ever heard of black pudding? Never. Jello? Not quite. Black pudding is blood. And in the north of England, they have something called black pudding. They take congealed blood, and they make it into a salami roll. By the way, I'm sure they spice it up and make it taste good. Otherwise, people wouldn't eat it. But when you eat blood, let me have him. Where is he? Make my day. It doesn't have a soothing effect on you. It doesn't have a calming effect on you. I had a friend who told me he was a shochet. And they have in the slaughterhouses, they have big burly non-Jews who help them wrestle the animal and hold the animal. And he said that one of these guys, they shechted a cow, and one of these non-Jews was there, and apparently he just filled his cup right up at the neck, and he hadn't had breakfast or something, and he just knocked it down. And listen, don't knock it till you try it. But there are people who eat snake, and people who eat lobster, people eat the octopus. Okay, so we don't. In the East, in the Far East, they eat bugs. Right? What we're repulsed by. You have some chocolate-covered crawly something or others. I'll pass. I'm good with chocolate-covered peanuts, but when the thing is moving, just doesn't do it for me. So what is the Torah trying to communicate here? So I saw very interesting. One of the Mefarshim says, chewing the cud represents moving kind of slowly. You're not just eating it and swallowing it. You're taking your time. You're bringing it back up. You're thinking about it. And split hooves also represents that you're not able to, you're taking smaller half steps as opposed to full steps. I don't know that animals that have split hooves, I don't know that they move slower than other animals, but it's representative of the leg which moves isn't a whole leg. It isn't a whole foot. Representing taking it slow, moving it slow, meaning that a Torah Jew, there's no headlong rush, unless once in a while somebody's drowning, you need to jump in and save them. But our whole life is, think about it a little bit before you do it. Think about it, chew it up, bring it back. Do you know, by the way, that you're not allowed to pull a plow with a cow? The Torah prohibits that you can't pull a plow with an ox and a donkey. Do you know that?
It's not fair.
So the plain meaning is why?
The ox is way stronger than
He's way stronger. So it's not fair in either direction. Either the ox has to work harder to compensate for the weakness of the donkey, or the donkey has to push himself beyond his capability in order to keep up with the ox. But there are Mefarshim that say, you know why it's not right? It causes suffering to the donkey, because the ox has eaten food, and all of a sudden there they are, the ox and donkey are pulling the plow, and next thing you know, the ox is chewing. And the donkey is like, hey, where'd you get that, bro? You know what? I'm hungry too. You want some of this? No. So it's tsar balei chayim. It's suffering for the donkey to hear the ox eating while he doesn't have his food. How do you like that? And by the way, it sounds to us like that's something that's, okay, that's if you're a farmer. I will tell you, there's a very relevant application. You know where that application is? I've been on flights. One of the benefits of ordering kosher food, special kosher meals, is they give it to you first, because they want to get it out of the way. So they come around and give you the kosher meal. But I've always felt that if I'm sitting, when I got my kosher meal, the guy next to me doesn't have food yet, I don't even open up the thing until he's got his meal. Because it's not right. I don't think it's derech eretz for me to be sitting there eating a meal while this guy's waiting and he's hungry. And I don't think that's right. And where do you get that? Just, that's what the Torah is trying to communicate sometimes. Well, what about the guy next to you? Okay, he's not Jewish, so what? He's a human being. You're sitting there eating a meal. The guy's waiting, and they get fear. You can wait a long time. So one of the messages over here is that you have to be very, very move through life. Take it one step at a time. Now, I want to make. When it comes to hechsherim, people have to know, when it comes to kashrus, the fact that something says kosher on it does not help you. It's not good enough. Well, it's kosher. If it's not good, it's their fault. Whoever wrote that, he's responsible. Therefore, I could eat it. So we are of the opinion that ingesting non-kosher foods, it's mitamtem es halev, the Gemara says. It causes us some sort of spiritual contamination. Now, if a person is obviously life-threatening situation, he's got no other food but non-kosher food, so you have to eat the non-kosher food. And even then, there is then a dispute among the Mefarshim whether when you eat it in a permissible fashion, does it still have is it a fact of life? It's metamtem es halev. You had to eat it, and it was a mitzvah to eat it. If you got to keep yourself alive and you've got nothing else to eat, you have to eat it. Does it anyway is it an inherent part of that it will have the negative effect on our soul? According to some of the commentaries, yes. According to other commentaries, no. If you were allowed to eat it, and you should have eaten it, so it's not going to have a negative effect on you. But you have to know that when it comes to kashrus and when it comes to hashgacha, you have to know who stands behind that hashgacha. Every city in the world, every Jewish community in the world has had kashrus scandals. Every city has had we had one in Chicago. Oh, this was a good one, by the way. Oh, this was a good one. I was out of Chicago already when I heard about this. There was a guy, I was so impressed with the guy. The creativity. There was a guy who had two factories. One was a non-kosher chicken factory, and one was the kosher one. And what happened was, in the kosher factory, the mashgiach would come around. Each kosher chicken, he would put a seal on it, and then 6 chickens would go in a bigger bag, and he would put a kosher seal on the bag. What this guy realized is, your average consumer, if I bought a bag of 6 chickens, and the individual chickens didn't have a plumba on it, but the main bag did, I wouldn't think twice. I would eat those chickens. Obviously, he put the seal on. He didn't put them on the individual chickens. So what did this guy do? After the mashgiach left, he took the seals off the individual chickens, and he closed up. He left the one seal on the top. He took off those seals, went to his non-kosher factory, put 6 chickens in a bag, and put the one kosher seal on it. So now he's selling 6 non-kosher chickens at kosher chicken prices, which is only about 8 times the price. And he did it for about half a year. And people in Chicago had to kosher their kitchens when they finally, how'd they find out about it? It's just brilliant. What I'm impressed with is his insight into the consumer. If I was a consumer, I wouldn't ask any questions. It's got a seal, so he doesn't have it on the individual chicken bags. So they didn't want to waste the seals. I wouldn't be asking questions. And he did it for about half a year. People had to kosher their chickens. How did the story break? This guy was Jewish, by the way. His non-Jewish worker in his non-Jewish kosher factory came to the kashrus company, and he said, my conscience doesn't leave me. My conscience is bothering me. The boss told us to take the kosher seals and put them on the non-kosher chickens. And then in the end of the day, I heard two versions. One was that they closed them down. The other one, they got hit with a $250,000 fine. But sometimes people are just like very, okay, well, listen, somebody's watching it. Somebody's supervising it. I have a son who's a mashgiach. You got to watch him like a hawk. And what could go wrong is 1,000,001 things could go wrong, where people even realize that they're making a mistake. They had another guy told me in England they had a company, they had a mashgiach. By the way, I know a guy who's a kashrus mashgiach who goes to Japan. He's in Japan very often. And he's so responsible, he taught himself Japanese. Now, Japanese is considered the hardest language in the world. He taught himself Japanese, but the Japanese don't know that he knows Japanese.
That's awesome.
And he wants to know what they're talking about. And so he goes to Japan, and by the way, for Shabbos, he flies to China. Because Japan is over the international date line where it's a suffix which day is Shabbos. Is it Sunday, is it Saturday or Sunday? So he goes to Japan, but Shabbos he spends in China because there's China's no issue. But this is a very responsible guy. That's what the guy you want is a mashgiach. So they had a case in England where the mashgiach was a mashgiach on a meat company. He had a sense. These guys apparently, you develop a he had a sense that there was some hanky-panky going on. But he couldn't catch it. So one day, what did he do? He locked himself in the factory at night. And all of a sudden, at 2 o'clock in the morning, he hears noise. And what happened? There was a sky roof. The sky roof was being removed, and there was a crane that was lowering boxes of non-kosher meat into the factory. And he caught a guy red-handed. You see that you got to realize that the issue here is money, because non-kosher meat is about 1/8 or 1/10 of the price of kosher meat. And this has happened. There isn't a community in the world that hasn't had a scandal. So when you're, what's that?
One more reason to be vegetarian.
Yeah.
Life is 10 times cheaper.
Yeah, except that you got to check. Life is 10 times cheaper because you got to check vegetarian. That means you got to check for bugs. And eating one bug is 5 times worse than eating 30 grams of pork. But yeah, you could be a vegetarian, right? You could be a vegetarian, but none of us will be friends with you. But you could be a vegetarian. But there was a, what do you call it? Now I'm just telling you that people, if you're concerned, if you're conscientious, you got to check about it. You got to check on it. And it's an area that we have no choice. We have to eat. There are now over 300,000 products in the world that have kosher supervision. 300,000 products have kosher supervision. Some of them are actually kosher. And 300,000 products. And the kashrus industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. I mean, how many Jews are there that are eating kosher food? You know why? They've done studies. Non-Jews, if all else is equal, and there are 2 products, there are corn chips with a hechsher and corn chips without, and the price is the same, they'll buy the one with the hechsher because they believe that it means it's cleaner and it's healthier. They see kosher, the kashrus industry is massive. There's massive money in it. Massive money in it. So a person who's conscientious, and this is just, there's sometimes the factory people are trying to cheat you, and sometimes they're honest mistakes. They're honest mistakes. So we have to do our best, but we're constantly surrounded by food. We're focused on food. A person is conscientious. A person has to relate to food, take food seriously. Okay, we're gonna stop here. I'm not feeling that well. Okay.
Thank you very much.